So Arsenal's hopes that rested on the shoulders of Spurs now rest on West Ham getting something from Manchester City on the final day of the season. If City draw against West Ham and Arsenal beat Everton, Arsenal will be champions. But a victory for Manchester City will see them win their fourth in a row. For more on this, let's welcome in, shall we? Frank Leboeuf is with us, as is Jurgen Klinsmann. We'll hear from you guys in a moment. Overall, Craig, this wasn't a classic game full of quality. In the end, Manchester City.
Well, I don't think it was too dissimilar to the scenario at Old Trafford at the weekend.
Yep.
Where there was a huge element of caution about Man City, understanding the situation, the moment, what was needed, playing a better side clearly than Arsenal were playing in Tottenham. A bigger threat, and there were scares along the way, and you know there was one or two scares at Old Trafford, maybe not as much as the 1-1 that the Sun had, but I think it was always going to be that case. I said, last week that this was about as big a test as you could get out with, the top four, away from home, at the team that are in fifth, at a team that'll attack you, but do have some defensive vulnerabilities. And it took a while, and I would imagine the half-time dressing room and for City would have been, listen, let's calm down, don't make mistakes, keep plugging away, we will get our goal, we will make a moment, and they did. And it came down the left where Phil Foden gets in, Bentancur got booked in the first half, couldn't make any sort of challenge. Well, he could have done, but he risked a second yellow and a red, so decided against it. And that allowed a clear break down the left, and then from there, they got in behind, and hey, is it 20 yards or 1 yard where you score, it doesn't matter. And in the end, City, as expected, got the job done. And again, like Arsenal walking away from Old Trafford and getting in the bus, they did what they had to do. Yep. And this is exactly how City were today.
Were they nervous in the first half, Stevie? How do you explain that? Because they gave the ball away a lot.
I think you'd have to say there was a little nerves. I've never quite seen City in such a big game giving the ball away as much as he did in the first half. But, as Craig's talking about the half-time team talk, it's about, look, we just keep doing what we do and it'll come because we've got the ability. And as simple as the first goal looks, the quality on the cross is frightening. Takes out 3 defenders, takes out the goalkeeper, and it's an easy tap-in. And that's the difference with this Man City team. That's why they're going to win the league. They've just got that extra bit of quality that nobody else has.
I think Liverpool away would be the answer to how ragged they were the last time.
Yes,
remember the game at Anfield?
Yeah.
But I think, and by the way, they got outplayed that day, but that raggedness on the ball, and it was worse than this, was down to Liverpool. It was down to they pressed and they harassed and they put them under pressure, and they were giving it away left, right and centre. This wasn't so much Tottenham pressing today, more than what was at stake.
Yes. And
any mistakes are going to be amplified because there's really very little time to put it right. And I think that's why we saw City like they were today.
Yeah, we talk about City and we talked about them over recent weeks, Frank, of them being machine-like almost, going out there and 10, 15 minutes in, they're already 1-0 up. It was a very different style of victory today, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, and it was more difficult due to Spurs also and the way they play. I think they've been good and they created danger and much more danger than Manchester United last week. So it's first due to them, and also because, as Stevie said, maybe the nerves, the tension, because they knew that that game was crucial, that they had to win. But then also at 1-0, I saw Guardiola for the last 15 minutes not pushing his players to carry on playing the way they normally play. He was more defensive, and he was right to do so. He was more conservative, and it's only fair. You are one game away to winning your 4th title in a row, so you have the right to deny a little bit of your philosophy. And that was interesting to see how, because of maybe of the tension, but also because of a more defensive decision, Manchester City was more conservative today comparing to what we normally see.
Jurgen, your boy Son could have done it.
Yeah, I think, it was a scratchy, a tricky game the first half. Almost like they feared to fail Man City in a certain way. They didn't know how to kind of take that approach because they could not afford to lose that game or go a goal down. Obviously, a tie would still keep everything open. But, you could see them, making passing mistakes that they usually don't do. And it took them really a long time to get into a rhythm, to get cleaner passing, to get their guys going. And then the second half, I think they were far much better off. There are a couple of key moments. Certainly was, when Ederson needed to leave the field and Stefan Ortega came on. Stefan Ortega then did 3-4 unbelievable saves against Son and against Kulusevski. That was a game winner. And then obviously Erling Haaland showed up as well. And that made then a big difference. But it was a very difficult game for Man City tonight at Tottenham. But well done at the end, winning it 2-0 and then, going into the last home game now against West Ham next week to finish everything off, which will not be easy either. I mean, it's not that they won the title already.
Have we seen big decisions from the managers today? We'll get to the Spanish one in a minute at Real Madrid. But, we saw Bentancur's reaction. Maybe it was a bit of being subbed, and maybe it was a bit of the frustration that he couldn't make the challenge on the touchline to stop the first goal, which ultimately got Man City rolling. And I've rarely seen a player, Stevie, kick a chair or anything on the bench like that, really, who clearly didn't want to come off.
Yeah.
But that, again, we're talking about big decisions. So the managers looked at it and thought, he's probably talked to the physio and thought, he's saying he's OK to continue, but we're going to come under pressure probably in this game, and I don't want a keeper who's carrying a knock, as good as he is, having to make the big save or saves before the end of the game when he's not 100% fit. So the manager makes a big call, which clearly has been the right one, and we saw from the clip Ederson's reaction coming off, not best pleased, but that's why these guys get the big bucks. He could easily have sat there, Guardiola, and said, I'll let him continue.
But it makes it easier when you've got a second goalie who actually would probably be playing in most other teams. Because when Ederson was out for that period of time, it was seamless.
Yeah.
As good as Ederson is, there didn't seem much of a difference when Ortega went in. So it makes it an easier decision on a game like today for the manager. Just turn around and say, no, we can't take a chance. We know exactly what Ortega can do. Get him in just in case.
Go on, Frank.
I think for me is one of the most crucial decisions that Guardiola had to make today. Being confronted to a goalkeeper who doesn't want to go out, who shows it to the world, I want to carry on, but being stubborn was the best idea of Guardiola. If there is a man of the match, it's between Ortega and maybe Guardiola, because those two guys made the difference. Guardiola because he decided to substitute Ederson, and that was a crucial, again, decision. And Ortega was the man of the match. The 3 saves that he made, and especially the one against Son.
He's thinking there, he thought it was...
Yes.
He's thinking within that split second, Guardiola, that all of a sudden that one mistake is handing the initiative straight over to Arsenal. And then that's, that moment is gone. It just shows you the emotions, and then obviously his decision came up big.
Jurgen, we were talking, the boys were talking when watching the game live, and we're looking at the highlight. Are you surprised that Son chose to go across the goalkeeper as opposed to putting it into that near post?
Yeah, I actually thought that Sonny keeps on going and dribbles the goalkeeper and puts it in an empty net. That is what I kind of felt like when he ran at Ortega. But obviously, the way Ortega stood him up, stayed calm, waited, maybe made Sonny a little bit nervous, and he decided then to shoot already quite early. But usually these type of occasions, these type of chances, Sonny puts away blindly. So it was a fantastic save by Stefan Ortega, no doubt about it. But as you guys say, rightfully so, it's very courageous by Pep Guardiola to make the decision, take Ederson off in that moment. He's full of adrenaline, he's fully pumped up, he wants to continue and bring Stefan Ortega on. This is the right thing to do. We obviously don't know what they discussed on the bench, especially the medical staff. If the medical staff had some discussions about possible concussion or some sort of risk, then obviously you as a head coach, you will always follow the advice of your medical staff, of your doctor. And maybe that was the case then, but obviously it made a huge difference, especially the save against Son, and the 2 previous saves are also against Kulusevski, outstanding by Stefan Ortega, who, we gotta look at that kid. That kid played majority of his career in Germany in the 2nd Bundesliga in Bielefeld. He's now since 2 years there, at Man City, and this is his moment. Was his moment, and huge congratulations to him.
Just on the Son chance, people always hear us on here talking about confidence, and when particularly forwards are full of confidence, they're scoring goals for fun, everything's coming easy for them. When you're in that state of mind, everything's clearer. Everything becomes really clear. You can focus on everything. You seem to have a lot more time. And the fact that Son right now is struggling in front of goal tells you that he doesn't see that opening. Because if he does, there's no question he picks it out. In my opinion, he's kind of decided early on what he's going to do because he doesn't see the big picture, because he's not in form.
Jurgen, who did you want to win this game?
I mean, obviously, Spurs, they had still a chance, for maybe reaching the Champions League spot there. So they were hungry for a win as well, even if obviously in the back of your mind is, we don't want to kind of have Arsenal win the Premier League title. But I think the way, it really reflected well the entire mood of both teams, the first half, making so many mistakes, passing mistakes, and it was so scratchy, it was so no rhythm. Now that you could feel the tension, you could feel the nervousness of both teams, not making too many mistakes here, and then hopefully, it ends up differently in the second half, which it did then, and things moved the right direction for Man City. And then you count, as a manager, you count really on your key players, and for Man City, besides now obviously Stefan Ortega, it means you need some difference maker out there, and I thought Phil Foden played a very, very good game there. Obviously, the way he prepared then the first goal was impressive, even if Bentancur, as you guys said, could not stop him because he was already on a yellow card. And then Erling Haaland showed up. He showed up, with 2 goals today, made it 38 goals in all competitions, 28 in the Premier League. And he proved his point again. And he also had his moments, throughout the season where, people were critical on him and they thought he could do better. But he showed up today and scored his 2 goals. And everybody's happy now in Manchester.
Postecoglou spoke afterwards, Jurgen, about how the atmosphere did affect the players. He said, look, when we've scored late goals, we've been lifted by the crowd. It's because it was much flatter today because what was at stake. He says it did translate to what happened on the pitch. Can you empathise with that?
Yeah, I can emphasize with that because nobody at Spurs wants Arsenal to win the title. Period. That's just the way it is, And maybe they say, we'd rather have Man City win it today, and go back home and have fish and chips and call it a day, and give away the game because it is the main rival is Arsenal. They look mainly at Arsenal and that makes it a very kind of tricky situation in the stadium, in the atmosphere. They're maybe not as pushy as they usually would be to kind of give you the energy and give you the stimulation to go at Man City and to create more chances. And it took the Spurs a long time. I mean, they had only one chance in the first half, and then obviously the chances that Ortega then saved in the second half. But it makes a difference. Ange is totally right saying that.
Convenient excuse, is it?
I think so. I don't think it's anything to do with the crowd. I don't quite understand it all. Yeah, geographically, it's a huge rival. It's a big rivalry because there's only a few miles between them and North London. But let's be honest about it. It hasn't really many times been a rivalry because Arsenal have been dominant. It's a bit like Manchester United and Man City. Now it's the blue half are clearly flying. But for years and years and years, City were yo-yoing between the leagues. Worry about what you're doing. If Arsenal, you had to win this game. Like, Heung-min Son is not missing that chance on purpose. Do you know what I'm saying? They wanted to win the game. The fans wanted them to win the game. There was still an outside chance of the Champions League. Right, this parochial sort of tribalism is... I kind of understand it in a way. It's almost like, an excuse. Well, we didn't want to win that game anyway because we're going to stop. What Arsenal are doing and what others are doing is to be admired. And I think Spurs have to try and worry about themselves, which their manager will, and reach that level. But in terms of a rivalry, I think Spurs need to give their head a wobble. They're aspiring to do some of the things that Arsenal have done. in the last, I don't know how many years. I mean, obviously it's been a barren spell for Arsenal since the great Wenger years, but boy, they're on whether they win the league or not, they are on their way back.
Frank, with this muted